Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Sandra, and I'm the marketing coordinator at TorontoJobs.ca. And joining me is Marc. He is a CPA CA, and he's the president of TorontoJobs.ca. And Teodora, she's an account executive, and she also helps out with recruitment as well. So she's going to add a lot of useful and helpful points today with Marc along here. So just a couple of things before I start or I stop sharing my screen. We are recording the webinar, so if for whatever reason you want to go back to the webinar to a couple of sections to review some of the points that were said, we will have this up on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to review it there. And if you also, you can also just send us an email, just info@torontojobs.ca, and we can send you the link to that YouTube video if that's easier. And we are taking questions. So if you have a question throughout the duration of the webinar, we do have just a little box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. It's just called Q&A, and you can pop your questions in there. You can also do it into the chat section as well. And Marc and Teodora will do their best at the end to answer all the questions that come up today. So I think that's it from my end. I'll pass it over to Marc and Teodora, and then I'll be back at the end just to help monitor the question and answer period. So I hope everyone enjoys the webinar. We are also streaming live on Facebook, so just hello to everyone there who's watching through Facebook. And I'll keep an eye on the chat on Facebook as well, just if we have any questions coming in through there. All right, so thank you everyone, and enjoy the webinar.
Great, thanks Sandra, and welcome everybody. And we've got a great turnout here today, which is phenomenal. Obviously it's an important topic, so we'll get right into it. The agenda, we're just going to do a quick introduction, myself and Teodora. We're going to talk about the current labor market, just a few minutes just to give you an overall picture of what's happening in the labor market. Then we're going to step into our top 10 tips, 10 best practices for recruiting and hiring. Then we'll conclude. We'll cover off some items, areas that you might be interested in, and cover off some questions and answers, and welcome everybody to our Facebook community as well. So a little bit about my background, and again, thanks for attending. Thanks for taking the time. We'll be able to do this in about half an hour or so. A little bit about myself. I've just passed the 25-year mark in recruitment. Can't say I've seen everything, but there's always something new, and obviously never experienced anything like COVID before. But the last couple of years has definitely been interesting, and most interesting time period in my recruitment career for sure. I'd like to introduce Teodora right now. Teodora is account executive, and turn it over to you, Teodora.
Thank you, Marc, for the introduction, and thank you to Sandra for moderating our webinars, making sure everything runs smoothly. And also just a quick thank you to everyone that's here watching with us. We really do appreciate it. So like Marc said, I am an account executive here at Toronto Jobs. Recently, I moved into recruitment, so it's really exciting to see both on the client end and the candidate end. So we're excited to share some of our best recruiting tips for 2022. Just to run you through a little bit about the agenda. Like Marc said, he's going to be touching on the Canadian as well as the American labor market, and we will also be sharing the top 10 tips. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end.
Now, you may have also been expecting Elise Perez, who was on the marquee, so to speak, to be here, but unfortunately she wasn't able to attend. So I'm here. And so just going over the Canadian job numbers real quick, and then I'll just talk about the US job numbers. So the most recent numbers that have come out were from February. The March numbers come out this Friday. Typically it's the first Friday of the month, but in the month of March, the numbers are only coming out this Friday. So employment jumped by 337,000 jobs, which in a normal, regular, routine market, that would be unbelievable numbers. I remember years ago, anything over 20,000 change-wise was either way, whether it was an increase or a decrease, was huge. But 337,000 is unbelievable. Unemployment rate is dropped by 1%, now down to 5.5%, and that was 6.5% the month before. So it went down quite a bit. We had some notable gains in February in accommodation and food services, information, culture, and recreation as well. And total hours worked were up as well by 3.6%, and that exceeded the hours that worked in February 2020. So remember, February 2020 was the last month before COVID hit. So really great numbers. Hours are up. They basically reached a record high in February 2022, up by 1.7% from the previous high from February 2020. So all along, good numbers. The province with the lowest unemployment rate right now is Quebec at 4.5%, and the province with the highest unemployment rate is Newfoundland and Labrador at 12.3%. Newfoundland and Labrador have had the highest unemployment rates across Canada for the most part through the pandemic. And in terms of cities-wise, the city with the lowest unemployment rate across Canada is Belleville, Ontario, at an unbelievable 2.3%. That's really unheard of. Anything generally under 4% is really just frictional unemployment. City with the highest unemployment rate across Canada is Windsor, Ontario, at 8.3%. And if you're thinking about Toronto, 7.4% unemployment rate in February, and it was 7.7% in January. Still well above the national average here, what we're finding in Toronto and the province. The U.S. side, the unemployment rate real quickly dropped to 3.6%. It was 3.8% in February, was lower than expected. Prior to the pandemic, the jobless rate was 3.5%. So we are almost in, well, anyways, the U.S. is almost at the point of where it was in February 2020. The U.S. added 430,000 jobs in March. So we do have the U.S. job numbers in March. We just don't have the Canadian job numbers yet in March. The hourly earnings rose by 13 cents to $31.73 in March as well. But U.S. businesses are having to increase pay in order to attract staff. Job openings, as they are in Canada and the U.S., they are at record highs. And some of the growth in the U.S., leisure and hospitality, which includes hotels, restaurants, amusement parks, they added 112,000 net jobs. So really great numbers overall. And another good sign, in March, women made up the majority of new employees as well. So great to see, because the women segment has been really hard hit, or had been hard hit during the pandemic, especially as mothers and families had to look after their children and things like that, and the responsibilities fell disproportionately on the female, on mothers. So moving on to our top 10 tips, best practices for recruiting and hiring. Teodora.
Yeah, so starting off with number one, learning to be more adaptable and flexible. So, and it's important for your company to be able to adapt during this health and economic crisis. So one way to do this is analyzing your current business model in the new year. Companies are now being more accommodating with their employees more than ever in terms of how work gets done, hours that they need to work, just offering some kind of flexibility in there. And another point to consider is compensation. So some important factors is making sure that the candidate feels valued and that they're shown this through their compensation. Of course, right now, everyone's struggling. You know, we are going through an economic crisis, so it's important that you're taking care of your employees and that they're shown this, especially when, you know, showing a job description, you want to make sure that their compensation matches the responsibilities that they'll be taking on. So offering a more competitive pay or benefits, and even assigning bonus as an incentive can be very helpful. So again, number one, learning to be more adaptable and flexible.
And I'm putting them in the chat as well, so you can follow along with that if you'd like to just take note of that. And also just flexibility, adaptability, really just in hours as well. It's not even always just about compensation too, but we have clients that are looking for somebody who wants to work 9 to 6, but a candidate who's working only 9 to 5 right now, they won't really have an incentive to accept that kind of offer. So really being flexible in all aspects, hours, work, how the work gets done, what days they might be off, not off, benefits, and we'll talk about that soon. So number two, and I'll again post it in the chat, number two is about being more open to remote work. We have some clients that are kind of stuck in the person has to be in our office. They have to work in our location. And when we say, well, why? Well, it's just because the team is here and we've always worked that way. But the reality is, if you're trying to win this war on talent, and as a small offshoot, there's over 1 million open jobs in Canada right now. Over 1 million. That's a record high. So if you want to win this war on talent, you have to be flexible. We talked about flexibility in the last point, but really being open to remote work. So what would it look like? Can you have that set up where somebody can work remotely all the time? Can you discuss hybrid options? But really talking it over with the job seekers, with the employees coming in. I know it might be a tricky fine line if you have all your employees working in the office and then somebody new comes around and they want to work from home. So I'm always of the mindset, talk to your employees. What do they want? What would they appreciate? What kind of options are there? But it's really amazing how before the pandemic, companies were really scrutinizing whether their employees should be allowed to work from home to a scenario where it's expected, where allowable. We're finding approximately that there is a one-third, one-third, one-third split. So about a third of the people are working from home all the time. A third are working from an office or warehouse all the time. So think Amazon or think a restaurant where you can't work from home. And a third are having some kind of hybrid model. So Teodora and I just spoke with a client looking to have somebody work in the office 2 days a week and 2 days at 2 days at the office and 2 days at home. So just number 2 is being more open to remote work. Continue to be more open.
Okay, moving on to number 3, improving employee mental health and wellness. So this means providing more tools and resources for staff on how to improve their own well-being. This can be encouraging employees to take mental health days or even helping members of your company communicate more about their concerns and struggles. So obviously when we work within a company, we have the days that you go in and you say, hey, how are you? And everyone's answer is typically good. Well, I'm doing well. That might not be the reality of it. So you just want to make sure that you're checking in on one another and making sure that those conversations are being had. Yes, it is a taboo topic, but it shouldn't be. And everyone has struggles, so that should be communicated towards with your employees and with your employers. So if you have any programs that are available, make sure that you let your employees know about them. Remind them that these programs are available, and perhaps even send out monthly notices reminding employees about these services. Especially when employees are working from home, it's really, really tough to feel, like you're communicating enough with your coworkers or managers, and isolation and burnout have been extremely prominent. So just checking in and making sure that they have the necessary support, and as well as that they know that they can reach out if there was anything. And it's okay to talk about it. Like I said, more and more employees and employers are discussing it. So just keep in mind that it is a very common thing, and mental health is definitely an important point to touch on. So just improving employee mental health and wellness is point number 3.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's not only for existing employees, but also from a recruiting perspective, talk to people that you're interviewing about what the programs are that you have available, because that is a help in recruiting people. They want to know what companies are doing. They want to know what your company is doing if they're going to work there. So good stuff, Teodora. Number 4 is, and again, I'm just going to put them in the chat here. Number 4 is creating a better employee engagement. Now, this is tough, obviously, if people are working from home. How do you get that bond? But how do you maintain that engagement among your staff, especially those even who live alone? So scheduling casual Zoom, I know there's Zoom fatigue. I'm sure we all get it. I get it some days where, it's a lot to be online. But, as things are starting to reopen, as social events, as entertainment thing, try to bring people together more often in a more casual type environment. And have mentors and partners for employees check in on each other. Really important to have an opportunity for employees to talk to other employees, to share what their issues might be, what their concerns might be, and talk about this. I mean, this topic is about recruiting the best candidates, but during the recruiting process, talk about what programs are available, what you're offering for employees that come on. So number 4 is creating a better employee engagement.
Moving on to number 5, updating your company perks. So your employees will need change if they are working from home. So for example, you can review your company's current benefit packages just to ensure that there's more mental health and wellness options for them, as well as accommodations for working from home. So during the pandemic, some companies have enhanced their benefits by providing credits for employees for new desk equipment, chair, reimbursement for internet, adopting benefit plans to provide other perks. And it's important to remember that you are paying into these benefit plans for your employees, but sometimes you don't realize that there are services that you're paying into that aren't actually being used to the full extent. So it's important to just maybe review your benefit plan, make sure that, the benefits that are being offered are actually of use to you and your employees. And if not, maybe reconsider the benefit plan and find things that are actually of more use to them in order to incentivize employees when interviewing. And like Marc said, this is a very important topic to bring up during the interview process, just so they know when they come to this company, what is being provided to me, how am I being taken care of? Because that is an important question that candidates have been asking. How is this company going to work with me to develop in my career?
So, in saying that, I just want to add to this point about company perks. What I found over the years is that the bigger the company, the more benefits are in a box, and we can't change it because it's in a box, and we've either done it this way or it's done but through a group third party, through some kind of insurance company or whatever. Smaller businesses have a lot more flexibility. So you can maybe give your employees options if that is if that is an option. So, for example, would you like package A, where you can do none of these options? Option B, you could do a private health spending plan, for example, PHSP, and that can give the employees a lot more flexibility in terms of the benefit packages. Or three, if you have a group plan, that's fine too. If they have to be part of it as part of the rules of the plan, well, that's another area. But a fourth option is letting people decide, letting people choose their own options. So, for example, Ontario Blue Cross, for example, companies can provide money to their employees to select a plan that makes the most sense for them. So there's many more options, especially for small to medium-sized businesses. So number 6. And again, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, you won't see this, but we'll post them on the Facebook Live afterwards. But number 6 is automate as much of your recruiting as possible. Now, obviously, some companies have used the pandemic to redevelop their entire recruiting process. For example, Amazon has made their recruiting process for some shift workers so automated that there's never an actual interview in person. The person just actually shows up for their shift. Now, most companies aren't Amazon, of course. So think of all the different areas that you can automate it. And we'll talk about an option that we've set up through this pandemic as we go along here as well, called Gahuza. But really think of all the different steps. What can you automate? Is there anything that you can automate to make things smoother? We also have testing on our new sister company website, where you can choose a number of tests on everything from accounting to call center to Excel, or whatever the case may be. So we'll talk about that as we go along here. But again, trying to automate as much as possible. And I always like to share this robot Vera, who's Russian and can make thousands of calls a day, and she can conduct 50,000 interviews daily, and she can answer questions. She works 24 hours a day. She doesn't sleep. She never has to attend meetings. Well, she's also being trained to recognize emotions like stress and sarcasm during interviews. So these are the future areas that things will move to, presumably, with the interview process. But to really think about your entire process, including onboarding, and think of what you can automate through the whole process. So again, number 6 is automate as much as you can of your recruiting process.
Number 7, look at across Canada or around the world for employees. So like Marc said, working remotely may be a new thing, or it may disappear eventually. Reality is that we don't know, right, but it is here right now. We do see that lots of candidates are open to remote work and are actually more inclined to remote work as of right now. No one can confidently predict what the labor market will look like. However, with the proximity of workplace being less of an issue, looking beyond geographic constraints to find staff is highly encouraged. So if you're able to accommodate working from home, even look for areas where unemployment rates are extremely high. Marc was mentioning Windsor is one of the highest unemployment rates right now. So even if you can hire someone from Windsor that can work remotely and still get the job done, that would be also an option. In this way, you'll also have more leverage because the competition is very, very strong right now. And you should also look at other government programs. There's lots of them that are out there currently available for hiring for students, new graduates that are just finishing up in April, training grants. So all of these options just to, move beyond the geographic constraints that we used to face. And again, looking across Canada and around the world for employees.
Yeah. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people dispersed. Everybody seemed to go from Toronto and went to everywhere from out east, out west, or throughout the GTA, but further away. And we found that employers that are winning the game are much more open to finding candidates that are outside the geographic boundaries of where your company might be. So really using that. So number 8 on the list is spelling out expectations for being available and not being available. So this has been a really kind of push and pull, yin and yang type discussion over the last 2 years. What we've been finding with our clients and what we're hearing from job seekers is that some people just want the downtime. They want to know that they're not going to be needed all day long and that they need some downtime to do their work. And so trying to cap things, trying to allow for breaks. People are still looking for work-life balance in an interesting way. Before COVID, the work-life balance was more about the ability to work from home, the ability to maybe work 4 out of 5 days instead of a full week. Now the work-life balance is, hey, do I need to be on Zoom all day long? Do I need to be on calls to be, I need some time to, I need some downtime as well. So number 8, really spelling out expectations for being available, not being available during the recruiting process, during the interview process, being very upfront with that, with your job seekers. So.
And number 9, enhancing health and safety. So you want to ask yourself, what is your company doing to demonstrate health and safety? Especially right now, candidates are extremely concerned with safeguards, as well as different sanitation stations, plexiglass screens, making sure that once they do go in person, if that is a requirement, that they are being taken care of. Another question to consider is, do you have sick days? So it's an extremely hot issue right now where people are afraid of calling in sick out of the fear of losing their job or not getting paid. So some employers are actually requiring proof before returning back from a sick day, which means that, minimum 2 to 3 days after calling sick, you would need to show proof after coming back. And that leaves some people in a very vulnerable position of not getting paid for 2 to 3 days if they're not cleared yet. So just make sure that that's clear. It's communicated to the employee during the interview process, and that there is a game plan in place so that any issues can be avoided. In one way, you're not left stranded without an employee, and on the other side, the employee is not, left without a game plan, without pay, without whatever it may be. So just making sure that you understand what your health and safety standards are and that they're communicated to your employers. Again, number 9, health and safety enhancement.
And number 10, the final point, but we do give you a bonus one, but I'll get to that in a sec. Making everything more visual. So what we're finding is that companies are still kind of using job descriptions with lots of words and putting in as much as they can into a job description. But the ones that are kind of winning the war on talent are the ones that are making it more fun, more visual, videos. Linking to your social media, using LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even some companies Snapchat as well. So it depends obviously on what types of jobs that you're looking to fill. You might not put a CFO role on Snapchat, but think of where your target audience might be looking. Some companies are creating a social media strategy like sponsored ads within Facebook, for example, that target specific individuals that would be best suited for the positions that they're hiring. So, for example, customer service positions, you can really pinpoint the types of candidates that you're looking through Facebook. So, connecting with your marketing people to see how you can use your organization's social media to advertise about open positions. If somebody's already a fan of your company, your organization, they're already following you on social media, well, use that leverage to move forward. So number 10 is making everything more visual.
And number 11, just a bonus point, training your line managers on interviewing virtually. So, for example, it's important that line managers know how to conduct interviews because they are pretty much on the front lines. They are more hands-on in terms of the job that the employee would be having to do. And that way they have a more direct idea of what they are looking for, what the ideal candidate would be. So it's another thing when you know how to do the interview, but getting your line managers in on the interview process is critical. So in this case, the best thing to do is practice with them, give them directions. I unfortunately have seen a lot of poor interviews being conducted by line managers right now, and it's extremely detrimental to the interview process because good candidates are coming out and then they get turned off because of the poorly conducted interview, whether the line manager didn't come off friendly enough or questions weren't asked appropriately. There's just a lot to the interview process that line managers may not be directly aware of. So to avoid this, some useful tips for video interviews would be good lighting, having no kids or screaming in the background, no other distracting noises, making sure that your camera is at an appropriate angle, and make sure that you're on time for the interview. Because if candidates are taking the time to come out to an interview, you want to show that mutual respect back and make sure that their time is valued. So again, the bonus number 11, training your line managers on interviewing.
Terrific. So those are our top 10 plus the bonus. We're going to take some questions. If you have any questions, just post them up or just have a few quick concluding remarks. But there's many changes going on in the recruitment landscape right now. The job numbers have been fierce, for lack of a better word, with 1 million job openings in Canada alone, a lot more in the US. But so because of these changes, it's important that you don't underestimate the whole process, how long it's going to take. On average, excuse me, on average, it takes 36 days for a position to get filled. There's ways of shortening that down, but also given the market, expect it to possibly take longer as well. So really staying in touch with job seekers, getting them excited about starting, creating a culture before they start, staying in touch with that candidate. Just because they sign the job offer doesn't mean they're going to start. So stay in touch with them during that crucial 2-week time period if they're giving notice. So there's many more tips we can share with you. Again, you can review some of these tips: creating better employee engagement, number 3, updating your company perks, number 5, looking at across Canada, number 7, just to give you some other ideas. But if you would like to talk about any tips, feel free to reach out to myself or Teodora. You can email, you can call us. I'm going to put Teodora's information in the chat here. Excuse me. And I'm going to also put my information in here, so feel free to talk to us if you'd like. And again, Iglesias wasn't able to make it, but I will put her information in the chat in here as well. And just another quick promo that I'd like to do. I talked about earlier Gahuza. It is a new platform that we've been creating in the last 18 months or so. You can do live interviews right on the site. You post your job, you click a button, it will send a message out to all appropriate candidates that meet what you're looking for. You can interview them within a few minutes. You don't have to post jobs, search resumes, or get postings and get people to review them. Great way to do it. So check it out. It's we have 30-minute free minutes that you can use at your convenience, and of course TorontoJobs.ca, where you can post your jobs. You can search your resume, search our resume database. We have hundreds of thousands of resumes on there as well, and also we have a recruiting team as well that you can help. We can help you to find staff as well. So I guess we'll turn it over back to Sandra.
Hi there. Yeah, and just to go off of what you were saying with the points, we are recording it just as a reminder to everyone. So if you do want to go back to specific points, then we will have this video up on our YouTube channel. And we do have a couple of questions. I know we're getting close to time here, but I think we can have, I think we have time just for a couple of questions. So the first question here that we have is, what are organizations doing regarding having people back to work?
So I'll take this one, Tudor. Maybe you can take the next one. As I mentioned earlier, it's about a third. Generally speaking, there are about 24% of Canadians that are working from home right now. At the height of the pandemic, it was up to 40%. So it shows you how much it has come down. I think it's a real struggle. Companies are having a real struggle with calling people back and worried that they're not going to want to come back or that they will quit. And so I would just have those open conversations with people. Do you want to come back? It depends on your industry, depends on the needs, depends on the role, depends on how much personal connection is needed. So survey people. You might want to ask people what they want and what they think is best. And there's no one size that fits all. Some departments might require people to be in the office all the time or at the company, such as customer service, warehouse, whatever, and others may be able to do the job from home, HR, accounting. So really, you can't just paint the paint the brush for everybody and say this is what we're going to do. It's all about what's important for your organization.
Okay, the next question we have here is how do you remain competitive when hiring for staff, especially for small to medium-sized businesses?
Okay, I can take this one, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, so just really quick, I would say the tips today were really helpful. I honestly personally use them myself in recruiting. So when I speak to clients, I make sure to ask, do you have an option for remote work? Even if they initially tell me that I was looking for someone in person, if there is an option for remote work, we work around that. And I found out, I find that clients really like that. It works really well for them. So just branching out, another way is branching out from traditional forms of hiring. So typically we see job board postings, and as much as they've worked in the past, it's just not working right now in this market. So looking at different options, for example, like Mark mentioned, recruitment services from our recruitment team. These are skilled headhunters who are directly going and out and looking for the ideal candidate. So that's one option. Another way is to look at running a social media campaign or sending out an e-blast or even doing a webinar such as this one to discuss the open positions. So Toronto Jobs does webinars on, we host them ourselves, where you can come out and actually discuss these open positions that you have. And as such, we would invite our job seeker database to come in and see what positions you have. This is a more one-on-one and more approachable way of getting candidates as opposed to posting on a general job board for candidates to come out and search for that one job. And seems like a needle in a haystack right now with this in this market. So essentially, you're going directly to the candidate instead of waiting for the candidate to come to you.
Okay, and I think I'm just gonna have one more question here, just because it's kind of this question here. It's kind of on trend with what I think has been happening in the industry lately. Any thoughts on interview ghosting?
Yeah, that's a good topic right now. It
Yeah.
seems to be part of the where we are. It's happening a lot right now, and kind of part of the reason why we created Gahuza, Guhuza, is that there's no ghosting. Uh, People go on the platform, you put your posting up there, and you hit a button, and candidates who are available right now start coming into interview with you. So there's no ghosting. You won't have a problem with getting stood up or anything like that. You won't have a problem with scheduling because it just allows you to see candidates. But it is, maybe some tips if you are setting up interviews. Confirming interviews beforehand, reminding people the day before. We're still on, right? Sending text messages. Hey, we're expecting you at this time. Some companies have an automated process that will remind people a couple hours before the interview that this is what's going on. Get a sense of their response time and their interest level. Like, why do they want the job? Especially if you've talked to them. Why are they interested? So, as much as you think that job seekers might ghost you, we actually hear a lot of complaints from job seekers that are ghosted by employers. So it actually works both ways, and it's a funny perception because both people have the same perception of each other. So, but those are a couple of tips about how to avoid ghosting. If you're gonna get ghosted, you're gonna get ghosted. There's not much you can do about it.
Okay, so is there anything else that either of you would like to add, just to sort of wrap things up here, because we're a little bit past the 2:30 mark here. So
I would just say we'll post for those of you watching on Facebook. We'll post the tips on
yes,
it.
yeah.
We'll do that shortly. And yeah, I think that's it. Feel free to reach out to us. We're here. We're happy to help. You have some questions about your interviewing, your recruitment process, challenges that you're having, anything that we can help you with. By all means, don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're here to do.
Okay, so Perfect. Thank you so much for both of your time today. As I have mentioned, we are recording this, so this will be up on our YouTube channel. And just as Marc said, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you everyone again here on Zoom and on Facebook for joining us. Yeah, and I think that's about it.
Great job. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks for
Okay,
organizing.
thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Teodora.
everyone.
Have a
Bye.
great day, everyone. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.